Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, the 5 to 7 a.m. time frame with the Chinese clock is the large intestine. And so sometimes folks will wake up and they'll have some trouble with needing to hurry up and go to the bathroom at that time frame. Well, this means that there could be something going on in the intestine. But it could also mean between 5 to 7 p.m., the 12 hours ahead of this, you want to be working on restoring yourself, balance, connecting, maybe some meditation, maybe some breathing, maybe just staring and doing nothing. And interestingly enough, it's after dinner, usually, if we're eating dinner a little bit earlier. So I find it interesting to think about these kind of things. So let's move back through the evening because I've kind of went back and forth and you might be having a little trouble following me. So I just want to put it into perspective. Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., if you're having trouble with either falling asleep or staying asleep, that's the gallbladder time. So the gallbladder, even if you don't have one, this still applies to you because the gallbladder goes with a certain type of energy. In Chinese medicine, they call it the judge. It's the decision-making gland or organ or part, if you want to call it. It's not really a gland. It's a part. And if it's part of decision-making or resentment, bitterness, and the liver is irritability, anger, and frustration, and the liver time comes right after it between 1 and 3 a.m., you may be having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep between the 1 and 3 a.m. time frames. So thinking about these things, okay, the gallbladder, what does it do functionally? It helps us with digesting fats. If we're having trouble digesting fat and we had a lot of fat for dinner or even at lunchtime, because remember, between 1 and 3 p.m. during the day is small intestine time. The gallbladder is connected to your small intestine. So in this time frame, if you're having trouble between that 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., and even a little bit later, there may be some connections here to digestion. Now, 1 to 3 a.m. wake-ups could be the liver. Now, could this be parasites? That's like a hot thing that people talk about now. Well, yeah, definitely. But it could also be that your liver's having trouble metabolizing things. Most folks over 40 have the starts of fatty liver. And a lot of people have it. Even if you're thin, you could have fatty liver, which sounds insane. But here's the thing. If you're constantly waking up at this time frame, you do want to look back at your digestion because a backed up liver is often a manifestation of you not digesting your food well. So 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is gallbladder. 1 to 3 a.m. is liver. 3 to 5 a.m. lungs. Remember how I was mentioning if we're waking up between 3 to 5 a.m., we could be having trouble with detox because remember the 3 to 5 p.m. is bladder time. Maybe you didn't hydrate enough because if we need to hydrate well to be able to exhale. Well, maybe you're struggling with breathing. Maybe you're having a little bit of trouble between 3 to 5 a.m. with a little thing called sleep apnea. Happens more often as we get older, especially in women as our estrogen levels decline and our ligaments become lax, our tissue becomes lax. So we have floppy tissue, if you will, in the throat that can mess with your airway, especially if you have a tongue tie. I just found this out a couple months ago when I went to a holistic dentist who was like, yeah, you have a tongue tie. If you've been having trouble waking up between 3 to 5 a.m., that could be why you're having trouble breathing. I'm like, this is wild. All these things that I didn't learn in school. And now we have so much stuff. It's fascinating. But if you're waking up between 3 to 5 a.m., you might want to look at your lung health. You want to look at, are you breathing well? Are you diaphragmatically deep breathing? Once again, my last workshop with Deanna Hanson, we talk all about how you breathe makes a huge difference in how you thrive. She said 84% of weight loss is through your breath. Like, what? That's crazy, but something to ponder. So 3 to 5 a.m. lung time, 5 to 7 a.m. large intestine time. So if you're having gut issues, you might wake up at 5 a.m. on the dot. Keep waking up like that. So we might want to be looking at like, okay, what can we do to help your digestive system? Maybe you have bloating, maybe you have constipation, maybe digestion is sluggish. Another interesting thing about the energetics or the emotions that go with your large intestine is that stuckness, an ability to let go of things, feeling overwhelmed, wanting to hang on to something tightly, but you know you need to let it go. That can all be part of large intestine issues. And so that wake up between 5 to 7 a.m. could be due to an emotional component. I also forgot to mention that with the lungs between 3 and 5 a.m., this could be grief, this could be sadness, this could be emotional suppression. What's frustrating for a lot of folks is we try all the things and then nothing's working, and then we get more worked up emotionally. And a lot of folks are prone, and myself included, I'll be like, okay, it's probably a stress response, it's cortisol. But maybe it's even deeper than cortisol. It's a deeper rooted emotional. So what do we do about this? Well, I'm an acupuncturist, so of course I'm going to be like, have you seen an acupuncturist yet? All of us are trained in the Chinese medicine clocks and the time frames and what's going on in the time frames. And we will think about it when we put together a point prescription for you, meaning what acupuncture points we're going to use. And so in this case, when we're thinking about insomnia, a lot of folks will tell me, and I would say probably 75 to 80% of my patients will tell me they sleep better the night of acupuncture and sometimes a couple nights going into that time frame. Why is that? Because more often than not, the acupuncturist is looking at what are someone's symptoms? When are they showing up? What channels or organ systems are involved? And so when I'm in the office and folks are telling me, well, between 11 to 1 a.m., I'm having trouble sleep, I'm going to use some gallbladder points. I'm going to try to help that gallbladder. Even if you don't have a gallbladder, that's the best part because it doesn't matter. You still have gallbladder channels. Nobody took those from you. So we can manipulate these channels. And manipulate is probably not a great word. The term is we can put a needle to a point in the channel to get the circulation of qi, energy, blood, ions moving. One of the coolest things that I've seen with folks in my office is especially if there's a 3 to 5 a.m. wake up. There is a point called lung 7. So if you take your hand and you kind of look at your thumb and trace your finger, like your pointer finger down your thumb, and you've got the wrist there and you've got this like little divot. If you stick your thumb up like this little space comes in there. That little space is called the anatomical snuff box. The rumor is that back in the 1700s when there were body snatchers, like literally people stealing bodies so that they could research, so dissect people. They're probably murdering them, like let's be real here. But anyway, they would get bodies and they would literally use this point supposedly to sniff cocaine so that they could investigate the bodies. So dissect the bodies, look at the different organs, see what's going on in them. And so from your thumb, you have this little tendinous little hole there between your thumb tendon and the one tendon here that connects to your base of your thumb. That's the anatomical snuff box. And then when you run your finger just a little bit further, you got a little hump there from the end of your radius. And then you've got a divot there. That's lung 7. Lung 7 right there. You can press that. You can tap on that. You could put essential oils on it to help you with sleep if you're having trouble between 3 to 5 a.m. That's one of my favorite points to use. Now, what is the pair between 3 to 5 a.m. if we go to 3 to 5 p.m.? The bladder. I love to use bladder points because they're really great for opening up the back of the body, all of those muscles, like your muscles on either side of the spine, but your calves also and all the way down. So there's a point on the outside of your ankle that I'll often use, but you could use multiple other points. One of the great bladder points is right here on the inside of your eye. You can press in here. You could press here on the inside of your eyebrows. That's bladder 2. You could rub that point and lung 7. You could rub those when you wake up between 3 to 5 a.m. See if it helps to harmonize you and get you back to sleep. Oftentimes, I will even put magnesium, topical magnesium right here, bladder 2, and right here, lung 7. Another way to do it if you're not so much into essential oils. Now, I know I'm going to get the question, what kind of essential oils would I use? Whatever soothes you. Typically, the most common one that people mention is lavender, but I tend to like things like helichrysum. I like copaiba. There's many different ones out there. It's just more about what relaxes you. And so it doesn't matter. It's more the stimulation in the area here. There's also a company called Vibrant Blue Oils out of Seattle. That is a great company too that you can use in this case with multiple different variations of nervous system called parasympathetic. She's got a parasympathetic blend that's got clove and lime. And there's also other different types of blends, especially for sleep and relaxation. So check out Vibrant Blue Oils. That's Jody Cohen. Now, nevertheless, I've showed you a little bit for the 3 to 5 a.m. wake up. What would I do for, let's say, that 1 to 3 a.m. wake up, the liver time? So interestingly enough, you can press a liver point that happens to be in between your big toe and your second toe. So if this was your foot, it would be in that webbing between your big toe and your second toe. And you rub in between there. That's a nice point to use between 1 to 3 a.m. You could also use a small intestine point. I like small intestine 3 right here, right where your pinky, so your pinky finger, edge of it, and you go to the edge of your pinky on the outside and you run your finger down. You're gonna feel that knuckle that you can connect into. There's the first one there, which we call the distal interphalangeal, the proximal interphalangeal joint, which is like your second knuckle, and then you got your third joint there, which is what we typically think of when we're calling them knuckles, and that's your metacarpal phalangeal. And right at the base of that is small intestine 3. So if you take and make a fist, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this better, but if you make a fist, there's like this divotty kind of thing that sticks out. That's a great spot for that point right there. And so that's small intestine 3. So you could just tap the side of your hand, pinky side, and you could get to that area. Even if you just tap the whole thing and you're like, I'm not sure where I'm going, that's the small intestine channel. You could tap there. And so you're going to be tapping into the 1 to 3 p.m. time frame, but you can also tap down between the large toe and the second toe. Now, here's a fun little tidbit about that area. I also like to, or that particular time frame, 1 to 3, you could touch behind your ear. There's a bone there. And that divot spot is called onmion. It's a great point that you can tap there as well. It's a sleepy time point, and so I will put magnesium topically here. I put parasympathetic oil here too, just to kind of chill the body out. Now, vibrant blue oils, like I mentioned before, has a liver one. I mean, whatever relaxes you. Of course, I will put the link to Vibrant Blue Oils down below in the YouTube, but also in my podcast notes at drjkrauseND.com if you're interested in learning more about that. Plus, they'll also be in the show notes with Apple iTunes and all the other things. So that's the 3 to 5 a.m. and the 1 to 3 a.m. time frame. Now, if you have trouble falling asleep, if you have trouble just getting into a chill mode to sleep, that's that 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. time frame. That's gallbladder time. You can actually use some gallbladder points that are on the outside of your leg to work on those. One is called GB34, gallbladder 34. It's on the outside of your lower leg. And in particular, I will tend to pair that one with something on the arm called Sanjiao 5. So if you take your knuckle and you put it to the back of your hand, so the back side of your hand, and right at the wrist where the wrist joint is, you can put your knuckle there, and where your finger touches, that there is Sanjiao 5, right in the middle there of the wrist. That's a lymphatic point. And interestingly enough, your lymphatic system is quite active between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. So is the reparation or restoration, if you will, of the thyroid and adrenal glands. So fun little tidbit. But this point here is lovely for working on the lymphatic system. It is a point on a channel known as the Sanjiao channel, which is triple warmer, or otherwise known as lymphatic movement, fluid movement in the body. It's a great spot to work on, hold and rub. In addition to the one that is on the outside of your lower leg, just below your fibula on the outside of the leg, like you'll feel that little knob, that bone on the outside of your lower leg, and just go below it. That's gallbladder 34. And of course, you can look it up in podcast notes or just search it. You'll find that point, acupuncture point, gallbladder 34. And rubbing those 2 points can be really lovely at bedtime. See if that can help you as well. In addition to the one that I mentioned before, that's behind the ear here. If you take your finger and you put it into the divot behind your ear and you just go a little back from it, there's that bone right there. Just rub some essential oils or massage the whole area. It feels nice. You have an attachment of one of your muscles there. It can feel really lovely. So that's a little bit of an idea of how you can work with your body and your natural rhythms to help you sleep a little bit better. And in particular, taking some time to think about what's going on during your day, especially between that 1 to 3 and 3 to 5 time frame. For those of you who are really going through perimenopause or menopause and waking up over and over again at those time frames. If you're having more trouble falling asleep and you're feeling more stressed out, overwhelmed, looking at the 5 to 7 p.m. time frame, which is the kidney, the restorative time. So finding that as a time to do some meditation, finding that as a time to really relax and take some time for yourself. It doesn't even have to be more than 10-15 minutes. Now, 7 to 9 p.m., I haven't mentioned this time frame. This is pericardium time. This is the area that surrounds your heart. And it's a really good time for moving your circulation, It's a really good time for helping you to just reset your brain from the day. And what's cool about this is a perfect time to do mobility work or do some fascial release work before bed, because it primes the body to have blood flow through it. The pericardium channel runs right down your arm on the inside and into your armpit. And what's wild about it running into the armpit is most people, when I do body work on them, their pecs are incredibly tight, so their chest, and then their armpits are really tight. And I can't help but think that there is some connection there to reduced mobility, reduced circulation, having numbness and tingling at night that might wake you up. It might benefit you to do some circulatory work between 7 to 9 p.m. Maybe some light Tai Chi, light stretching, a little light yoga, mobility. You get to choose whatever works best for you, but you got to play with it to know. And so this is one of the things I'd be thinking about. I've also found in my own research with myself that taking a gentle walk after dinner around the 7 to like 8 time frame can be lovely and feel really good for the body. It's helped me to sleep better, and I've been using my heart rate variability tracker, and it's showing me that with my habits that I enter, the times that I take the walk after dinner consistently, I will sleep better. So that's just me. Everyone's different, but I think it's worth noting. Now, 9 to 11 p.m., like I mentioned before, just to recap, that's lymphatic time. And so, like I had mentioned, the acupressure points, but if you're doing mobility work, you're doing fascial release work, that's going to help you move the lymph, especially if you're working on some diaphragmatic breathing, some good deep breaths, paying attention to your exhale. The longer you can exhale, the more oxygen you can release to your tissues. A lot of us are short breathing. It also relates to why we're tight in the pecs, why we're tight in the armpits, and why we're tight in our neck, not just tech neck. So things to think about as you're moving through trying to figure out insomnia, but also just trying to optimize your sleep. I have so many people telling me about their sleep scores. I have so many people telling me that they just don't seem to sleep well. And they've changed their bed, their mattress. They've gotten the sleep 8 scores now coming in. They've worked on the cooling sheets. They've done all these different things, but like nothing seems to be working. And I can't help but think that we've got to go back a little bit further to some of the ancient wisdom of Chinese medicine to see if that could be a key component for us. Now, I know that I've given out a lot of time frames. You might be like, oh my gosh, I'm driving, I'm walking, I'm working out. I can't remember everything you said. Don't worry. I got you. I'm going to have all of these details in the podcast notes at drjkrauseND.com. They're also going to be below here in YouTube, but they're also going to be in iTunes and everywhere else you get your podcasts. So if you haven't already, consider acupuncture to help with your sleep. Consider a regular schedule of it, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, especially if you're struggling with sleep around the full moon. Right now, as I'm recording this, it is full moon time. And I've noticed that a lot of patients will also complain that the full moon tends to make them vampire a little bit. So maybe schedule some acupuncture a day or two before we hit the full moon. Or maybe you're a new moon insomniac. Check that out. Take a look. If you're still cycling, you still have a period, take a look and see, is there somewhere in that time frame, like right before the period, during the period, that you have insomnia? These are all things to take into account because we are cyclical individuals. We are tied into the moon. We're tied into the universe. And sometimes we just forget that and think we've got to go straight towards all the supplements. And sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes it's little routines that we're skipping, little nuances that may help us incredibly, and then we don't have to take handfuls of supplements. All right, so just an interesting perspective I had that I wanted to share. If you are not already on my email list, folks, those of you who are not on it are not getting the full picture. I dive into a lot of different topics with Chinese medicine, with different health things, with different stories and cases from my office. I want folks to really hear what is happening in the real world with my practice, with Chinese medicine, with functional medicine, with naturopathic medicine. Like what's happening in the office? Like what really is going on? Instead of folks kind of saying, yeah, this will work. Yeah, that'll work. Oh, let's talk about stories. Let's talk about what's happening in real life. So I'm going to be bringing that more to you. I'm also going to be diving a little bit more into talking about how much travel can help you to be the catalyst for change in your life if you're looking for a true health transformation. And I'm going to be pairing travel and some coaching, some health coaching based on Chinese medicine principles that I'm realizing that we need to be going back to this time in life. So stay tuned for that. More on Travel and Transform is coming up. If you want to get on the wait list, it is out there. If you head over to my Instagram, you can find it there. If you get on my email list, you can have exclusive access to jumping on the wait list too for when that membership comes up, because it's not going to be just about coaching. It's going to be about live calls where we talk about health and travel. We're going to talk about all kinds of fun things, also tied into Chinese medicine. And then I will also have exclusive access to certain types of travel perks that you couldn't get just with your credit card points or booking on your own. So stay tuned for that. And if you like this podcast, by all means, please subscribe, please send me a review. It really makes a difference when I can hear what you think about the podcast, what you want to learn about, and how I can help you. Alrighty, everybody, you have survived another episode of the Health Fix podcast. You all have a great day, whatever you're doing. Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.